The Tolkien Road, Episode 91, The Lord of the Rings, Helm's Deep, Part 1. Alright, go ahead. The Tolkien Road, 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 the Tolk
Hey there, fellow travelers. Welcome to the Tolkien Road, a long walk through Middle-earth. On this episode, we continue our journey through The Lord of the Rings with the first half of Book 3, Chapter 7, Helm's Deep. Before we get started, why not hop on over to iTunes and leave the Tolkien Road a rating and feedback? It's a great way to show your support for the show and takes less than a minute. Or you can stop by tolkienroad.com, learn about previous episodes, and say hey. We're also on Facebook at facebook.com/TolkienRoad. Thanks for listening and enjoy. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Tolkien Road. John and Greta here. Greta, what's up?
Hey, not much. What's up with you?
Not too much. So we're recording this on Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas Eve,
yes,
everybody.
Merry Christmas Eve.
And Merry Christmas, because a lot of y'all will probably be
too.
listening to this on Christmas or afterward. Yeah.
So Merry Christmas season.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. So we are going to cover Lord of the Rings, Book 3, Chapter 7, Part 1 on this episode. This is Helm's Deep. This is the chapter. Title of the chapter.
Sounds so ominous.
Yeah, it does.
Mm-hmm.
It does. Overall reaction so far to this chapter?
I think it's just starting to get good.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like there was a lot of lead up.
Yeah, there is.
First part of the chapter.
Well,
then we're going to stop right at the cliffhanger.
Mm-hmm. You know how Tolkien is with his lead ups. He likes the lead up.
He does like the lead up.
So
I'm excited to read the second part. Let me say that.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on.
How about you? What's your reaction so far?
I mean, I like the lead up kind of stuff.
I know you like lead up and backstory. I know.
And I had, when I first read through this, I mean, I've read this several times over the years, but when I first read through this for the purposes of this episode, I was, there's a lot that happens, just kind of low-key kind of stuff that happens, and so it was hard tracking it, but when I really sat down and prepared for the episode, tried to gather my thoughts, there was, there's just a lot of little stuff, interesting stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
So
I can see where if it's your first go-around, I think you could probably miss a lot in this first part of the chapter.
This is a very Tolkien-esque chapter, especially the first half of it, with all the build-up.
Yes.
So we'll get to that. We'll get to our discussion about the chapter in just a second. We wanted to begin this episode by talking about something that's pretty big news for us, which is we've just launched a Patreon page for the podcast. For those of you who don't know, Patreon is a website that allows people who make who undertake creative endeavors, such as podcasts or songwriting or writing or making comics or something like that. It allows them to basically have a way of raising money for their creative output, right?
Yep.
To kind of support their creative output.
Mm-hmm.
And it works on that whole idea that of having patrons, right? That's how art worked, and once upon a time, right? You'd have patrons that would support an artist, or like a musical composer or an artist or something like that, and allow that artist just to kind of focus on their work and putting out the best work possible. And it was cool for the patron because they got to be like, yeah, I helped this guy do this amazing thing, right?
Right.
And probably they weren't even looking to take credit on that level. They were just like, what you do is wonderful, and I want to support it.
Right. And it's a way for them to take part in the creative process, without, even if, regardless of whether or not they have the skill or the time or the resources to do it.
Exactly. And so we decided, it does cost us a little bit of money every week to put this thing out, just for various things we have to cover. We have to cover hosting for the podcast, website costs, the equipment that we use to record this thing. You know, we have to purchase and keep maintained and buy new little things every time we decide to, you know, go in a slightly different direction or just want better quality or when something breaks. So there are recurring costs. There's always, you know, whenever you put out a show like this, even though it's free and it's going to remain free for download, there's always costs that come back. You know, I guess at the end of the day, there's really no such thing as a free lunch, right?
Yeah.
So,
there's no such thing as free ice cream either.
So, you know, what we want to do is we want to ask you guys, you know, to come on out and support us if you want to in that way, right? Yeah. We're already really thankful for all of the, you know, the support and correspondence we get on a regular basis. You know, it puts so much wind in our sails just whenever anybody reaches out and says, I love what you guys are doing. Yeah. I binge listened for the last 3 weeks to this entire podcast and I want more. We love hearing things like that. And, you know, we understand that not everybody is in a position to where they're able to give, and that's totally cool. But we want to find those folks that are, or that maybe can find the room to help and really make it worth your while to do so. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And
so that's the spirit in which we launched this Patreon page. I wanted to say, you know, really when you get back to it, why I started this thing, is, you know, there's other podcasts out there that talk about Tolkien and things Tolkien. I mean, there's huge fan communities of people that love things having to do with Tolkien out there. But the reason I started this podcast in particular was because I just wanted to kind of shine a laser focus on Tolkien, the man, and his philosophy, right? Mm-hmm. His philosophy of life. The cool thing about that is you find a lot of his philosophy in his Middle-earth works, but you find him in other works as well. And but I just wanted to, you know, I didn't want to do a whole lot of talking about the movies except to say how do they stack up against what's Tolkien made. You know, I know there's video games and all that kind of stuff, but I just wanted to focus on Tolkien because at the end of the day, I discovered in this man, like this mentor from beyond the grave, like this guy that just, it's almost like he got me and the things that were on my heart at a particular moment in my life and just inspired me in a way that few people have ever, if anybody, to that degree. You know, it was just a deep connection that I've formed with him, and I know how important his works were to him, and I just wanted the focus to be on kind of going through his works as he probably would have wanted to go through and discuss his works, right? Like, let's just sit down and let's just consider them in fine detail, right? Because they're that wonderful. I look at it as like being able to sit at his feet and just listen to him, right? And I wish I could do that. You know, I wish I could sit at the feet of the actual man and just listen to him. And you know, I think of this podcast as a long walk with Tolkien. Like that's what it really comes down to. You know, I just want to be amazed by his way of looking into the world. And, you know, for you as you're listening, I hope that it changes you maybe spiritually, maybe it changes you creatively, maybe it's all of the above. I hope at the end of the day, this podcast has kind of a slow effect on you of just making you a better person, making you a better human being, in a number of different ways. And, you know, for some of you you may just be like, look, I love Tolkien's works and just wanted to listen to him. But I feel like there's this transformative hidden power in Tolkien's works. I mean, it's almost like a sacramental thing. Like there's this way that Tolkien looks at the world that can just transform you from the inside out.
Yes, you can transform your own worldview too. I think just how you look at your daily life, and that's what I've, you know, as someone that I've, you know, didn't know Tolkien's works nearly as well as you did coming into this. I've learned so much, just about life and how to approach life by reading these. You know what we've read so far.
Yeah, we've talked before about like I think nuns and friars, like, you know, like cloistered people who live in like monasteries and just live kind of a rigorous spiritual life. I've heard stories of folks like that who literally use the Lord of the Rings as like spiritual reading. Like they have to do a certain amount of spiritual reading every day as part of their lifestyle and part of their rule of life. And some of them have gained permission to use the Lord of the Rings because of the incredible like just spiritual insight that's contained in it.
There's so much.
So much. And that's what I'm talking about. So,
which is awesome that Tolkien's created this whole separate reality from the one that we live in, but it still transcends the reality that we live in.
Yeah.
And that's just an amazing accomplishment.
It is. And to think about how popular just, like, he not only created his world, but he inspired all these other people in this entire genre, you know, that exists today. That's huge.
That's so true.
Yeah. I mean, that's massive. I mean, you could list most of the popular movie franchises that are in existence today. And I think it's a reasonable question with each of them, you know, and I'm talking about like the Star Wars, the Harry Potters, the Marvel like cinematic universes. I think it's a reasonable question to ask, you know, not that they directly come from what he did, but it's a reasonable question to ask, like, what would they be as popular as they are today if Tolkien had not kind of blazed this trail?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Paved the way, you know, as you're talking about. And and just like set the imagination of the 20th century on fire, you know, with you know, but in his own slow kind of slow building way, you know. So all it is to say, like, that's why I started this podcast, and you know, for those that what I just said inspires you, like that's my invitation to you to, you know, to get involved in by contributing financially. Yeah, you can do that over at patreon.com/TolkienRoad, or you can just go to tolkienroad.com and you'll be able to get to that Patreon site from there. So just a couple of other notes on kind of what you'll get in return for your support, because it's not like you just give your support and, you know, you just get the warm fuzzy. I'm sure you'll get the warm fuzzy, you know, as you hear other people talking about how much this podcast like inspires them and that kind of thing, and you realize that you're contributing to that. You'll get that warm fuzzy, and the warm fuzzy is all great, but you're gonna get some cool stuff on a regular basis in return. You'll get bonus episodes that you can get in video or audio, and you can go check out one we've already done that's only video right now, but eventually we'll be doing, you know, you don't have to worry about this. No extra work on you, Greta.
Oh, phew. I'm starting to get
for me
stressed out
it'll
over
be
here.
but for me I'll make sure it's both a video and an audio version, so people can download and listen to it on the way to work if they want to, or they can just they're shorter, right? So if you want to watch the video, like, you know, just 5-10 minutes when you get home from work, and, you know, at the end of the day you're like, I really need some Tolkien, just think about Tolkien for 10 minutes. These are great for that. So you'll get, there's going to be a new weekly one of those that you're going to be able to get, depending on your level of support there. And then there's a monthly drawing for some cool Tolkien related prize. So the first one of those will be for January. So it's not too late to get involved if you want to find out what that's going to be. I haven't completely decided. I've been reading the Children of Hurin, which is one of the books that came out for Tolkien posthumously, and man, it's really good. It's a story. It's a longer version of the story of Turin Bar, right? And it's really good. Like, it's wow, it's so good. So I'm kind of leaning towards maybe
giving away a
copy of that for support. But who knows? It might be something else. There's so many great books related to Tolkien out there that I think people might enjoy. So, but regardless, you'll have a chance to win a prize every month that you're contributing. You're going to be a part of the Fellowship of the Road, which is this wall I'm going to create online wall, which is just going to list everybody who's a patron, who has or is now a patron of the show. Cool. And you'll even if you can't continue to give, you just give once or twice, or you give for a while and then you have to stop for some reason, you'll continue to be a part of that forever, because we're even if you only give once, like, we're incredibly thankful for that.
Oh, absolutely. And a little bit helps.
Exactly. And I want to say that we've got 5 patrons so far.
Ooh, that's awesome.
That is awesome. And so I'll go ahead and list them off. Shannon Stockbridge, Josh Sosa, William Hutton, Brian Orr, and Margaret Lyon. And I want to say to you all, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for just kind of like, just putting a lot of faith in us from the very beginning to go out there and do that. So what's cool for them, and they didn't even know this when they signed up, but they're going to be our first 5 of what I call the Valar when it comes to the podcast. So if you don't know what the Valar are, go back and read the first parts of the Silmarillion. But to be a Valar is pretty cool. And
I'm gonna be a Valar.
And so they're the first 5, and since there were 14 Valar, the first 14 patrons, so there's 9 more spots, the first 14 patrons are going to be forever known as our Valar on this.
Sweet.
So if you want to be one of the Valar for this podcast, you got to act fast before those spots go away. So once they're gone, they're gone.
This is one situation in which you should be hasty.
Exactly. You definitely be hasty on this. Otherwise, don't be hasty. So bottom line, blah, blah, blah. You can be a part of this. You can be a part of what we do every week, what we bring, to the world every week, and of just getting this deep reflection and discussion on Tolkien's works out there to all these other people. For those who are already giving, it's like they can think of this now as like, not only do I get to listen to this podcast every week that I really enjoy, but I get to help put it out there in front of other people, and who are going to discover it one day and be like, where has this been all my life? I love Tolkien's works, and these folks get that and just want to explore them, right? So
you have to share the love.
That's right. And by the way, we're looking for a couple of executive producers who are going to give it an exceptional level, and I know there's a couple of you out there, so if you're ready to do that, that'll be huge for us. And man, don't miss your chance, because it'd be cool to be an executive producer.
And a Valar.
Yeah, and a Valar. Yeah.
An executive producer, Valar. That
Right
has a
on.
nice ring to it.
Exactly. So bottom line, we all love Tolkien. This podcast is our way of sitting at his feet and learning from him. So come join us and help us make it happen.
Yes.
Go to patreon.com/TolkienRoad, or just go to tolkienroad.com and you'll be able to access it from there. Last note on that, the latest bonus video, the first non-pilot bonus video, is going to be Orcs versus Goblins. Okay. So and what's cool about this is one of our patrons, William Hutton, he when he gave, he said, it'd be really cool to do a little video on orcs. What's the difference between orcs and goblins?
Okay.
So you and I are going to talk about that after we finish recording this episode, and we'll get that up. You don't have to worry about it.
Okay. I was like, I don't know. I know goblins are bad and orcs are bad, but I don't know what the difference is.
We'll have a good discussion. So go check that out. I'll probably make it available for free just so you all can go check that out. But these videos aren't going to continue to be free because they're a cool bonus for the patrons. But who knows what those videos will be from week to week? We'll always tell you about them, what they are. But what's cool is that if you're a patron and you say, hey, it'd be cool to do a video on this, we might end up doing the video on that.
We will do our best to make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
We like to keep our fans happy.
All right, that's all on Patreon. Hopefully not too many of y'all are rolling your eyes, but
me.
Yeah, seriously, I'm like rolling my eyes at myself.
I've been looking at my watch, like, come on, dude.
I know.
This is not the point of this.
You got
episode.
stuff to do. It's
I
Christmas
do have
Eve.
stuff to do. It's Christmas Eve, for heaven's sake.
You're a mom on Christmas Eve. You got like all kinds of stuff you need to do.
All kinds of stuff.
All right.
So
well,
let's move it along.
I'll shut up about Patreon. New post over on True Myths, kind of a little Christmas spirit post. This is 3 fascinating things Tolkien said about the incarnation.
Oh.
So go check that out.
Perfect for this time of year.
Yeah, go check that out over on truemyths.org.
Right
3 fascinating things that Tolkien said.
Do it.
That's right. And as always, do we have any correspondence? No, you're now the correspondence and haiku
I'm the
queen.
correspondence and haiku queen, which Rob Fangman so graciously acknowledged, called me the High Queen of Haiku.
That's awesome.
Which is so awesome. That made my week.
Yeah.
We have several haiku.
And it's very clever.
It is very clever.
Nice.
Yes, and very complimentary as well. But we have several haiku, but no just correspondence.
Okay.
So
that's cool. It's leading up to Christmas week, so it's kind of a weird time of the year when it comes to all that. So
it is. I mean, Mary Grace did say as part of her email in her haiku email that our podcast makes her weekend fun.
Right on.
And that we're the difference between a fun weekend and a not fun weekend. So
awesome. Well,
that was like huge for the ego. So thanks, Mary Grace.
Mary Grace, we love hearing from you.
Yes, we do.
I mean, man.
Always. Yes. But everybody else also sent haiku. So we'll save those for the end.
All right. Well, best way to get your correspondence and haiku on the show, tolkienroadpodcast@gmail.com. So there you go.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about Chapter 7, Helm's Deep. So when we left off...
Do it.
When we left off, they were ready to ride from Edoras.
They were.
Yeah.
Theoden was back and better than ever.
That's right. The boys are back in town.
Mm-hmm. I love that song. Don't give me an excuse to start singing again.
The boys are back in town.
The boys are back in town. Yeah, that should have been... Why was that not in the movie for that scene? That would have been perfect. Maybe in the...
I'm so glad that Peter Jackson had the good sense. I mean, there's some issues I take is any, obviously a super fan of books is always going to find little quibbling things to take issue with when it comes to movie versions of those books. Mm-hmm. But I'm super glad that Peter Jackson didn't try to do some like work in pop culture songs into that movie. I mean, I love that song. Mm-hmm. But it would have ruined...
Oh, it would have ruined it, for sure. I was totally saying that tongue-in-cheek.
I know.
What I was going to say was maybe in, the Spinal Tap version of The Lord of the Rings. That would have been perfect.
That's, Spinal Tap... It's been a while since Spinal Tap did anything, but that would be a great pair... Because you know how,
oh, yeah.
In Spinal Tap, they had the thing with the dwarf...
With
Stonehenge.
Stonehenge, yes.
Stonehenge, right?
Yes.
I think the problem was that there was a Stonehenge that was in danger of being crushed by a dwarf.
Yes, that would be awesome.
But it would be great to see. It'd be a great little just Spinal Tap-ish parody to have them do an attempt, make a movie about an attempt to do a musical a heavy metal version of The Lord of the Rings or something like that. Because there's a huge connection between a lot of metal music in the 60s and the 70s and later, and Lord of the Rings. Led Zeppelin had several songs that incorporated ideas from the Lord of the Rings in them because Robert Plant, who was their singer, was loved the books.
Oh,
he loved
the books. I didn't know that.
And which is weird because you normally think of Led Zeppelin as this hard charge kind of super visceral, kind of hard rock, super sexy kind of hard rock, and but they were total Robert Plant was apparently totally a Tolkien nerd, and so they had a song called Misty Mountain Hop.
Oh.
And one of their songs called Ramble On, it talks about in the darkest depths of Mordor.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it talks about Gollum come up and stealing the ring, and he's using this whole thing to make a reference to some other guy taking his woman away from him, right?
Oh, cool.
So
anyway, man, that's
awesome.
That's
a huge tangent, and of course, just the flavor of a lot of their music, Immigrant Song.
Yes.
Which I've been showing our 9-year-old son who's learning to play drums. That song just has a very kind of Rohanish vibe to it, with they're on this kind of charging,
hard charging.
Okay, but we gotta focus. All right, so focus in. All right, so if we look at the maps in the back of the book, they started out here. Here we are in Middle Earth, and this is map 4 I'm looking at, by the way, in the back of the book. You got Edoras right there, which is where they're just leaving from. Here's the Gap of Rohan. That's where Isengard is. Okay. And then you have Helm's Deep right here. Okay, so they're basically going from Edoras to the west, right? And they're actually riding...
the northwest, isn't it?
Yeah, to the northwest.
Okay.
And they're actually riding towards Isengard.
Right.
Because Helm's Deep is between them and Edoras and Isengard. So,
right.
Anyway, that's the direction
and
they're
Helm's
moving in.
Deep is still in Rohan. Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's part of the country of Rohan. Okay. That's right. So, all right. So we start off this chapter, and they're heading towards Helm's Deep. They're heading in the direction of Isengard, but ultimately towards Helm's Deep for their purposes. And I love the detail in the opening here, and I think there's it just shows how much. Again, it once again reiterates how much thought Tolkien put into every little detail of this work. you got far ahead and to their right, the misty mountains loomed. Ever darker and taller they grew as the miles went by. I mean, it's just like he tried to envision everything. Like he tried to put himself on the ground and see everything, right?
Yep.
Through the eyes of his characters, You've got, in a great circle under the starry sky and the waxing moon, they now made their bivouac. So he knew, Tolkien mapped lunar cycles and knew that this was a waxing moon at this particular date when they were, on the move here, right? So he knew enough not just to say that the moon was in the sky, but that it was a waxing moon.
It was a waxing, as opposed to a waning moon.
Right, exactly.
Wax on, wax off.
So, you just gotta give props to Tolkien for that detail.
Yep.
For that level of detail.
Absolutely. And I will not admit on the air that I just skimmed that part, but.
No, that's all good. I skimmed it when I first read it too, but
okay.
I wanted to just give props to that.
No, it is. It is beautiful.
All right. So we find that a heaviness lies upon the land. That's what I really take from this next section here.
A darkness, just like an oppressive.
Yeah.
Darkness.
Yeah, and there's lots of things that in Lord of the Rings that pop up like that. The ability of like evil and different circumstances to kind of cast darkness. There's both this kind of there seems to be kind of an intentional darkness, but also just the darkness of events as they are right now, right? The fact that they're riding to this battle where they might all die.
It's
right?
like a spiritual darkness. And it's
And
both literal and figurative, I think.
And Saruman seems capable of that spirit of casting that spiritual darkness.
Absolutely, yeah.
But it's interesting when Legolas is looking ahead. He says, "I can see a darkness. There are shapes moving in it, great shapes far away upon the bank of the river. But what they are, I cannot tell. It is not mist or cloud that defeats my eyes. There is a veiling shadow that some power lays upon the land, and it marches slowly downstream. It is as if the twilight under endless trees were flowing downwards from the hills." So this is interesting to me because I feel like Legolas sees, it's almost like he sees two things. He sees kind of this misty sort of darkness, but he also seems to see discrete figures, right? He seems to see actual things moving in the distance. And the fact that they're coming down out of the forest makes me think that maybe he's seeing the Ents, right?
Oh, they're coming down out of the forest, not out of Isengard.
I think did I read this right?
You probably did.
Let's see. Great shapes, but what are they? It's not Mr. Cloud. There's a veiling shadow.
Yeah, he doesn't ever mention a tower or anything. So yeah, it must be the forest.
He says it is as if the twilight under endless trees were flowing downwards from the hills. I think that's the thing that cued me in, and the great shapes. Like, what else would the great shapes be?
Yeah.
And
is that where? So where is he looking? Is he looking? So he's looking northwest.
He's looking
the
toward
direction that they're riding.
Right. He's looking toward.
He's looking toward
Isengard, and so.
And where's the forest?
So, right, they started out here. They're heading in this direction towards Helm's Deep, and the forest kind of ends right into where Isengard is. Right.
I see. Okay.
So
they're kind of coming at Isengard from two different directions: the Ents and the company.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it seems to me like
south.
That's plausible. It seems to me like it's plausible that what he's seeing is the Ents.
It does. It does. Yeah.
So anyway.
That makes sense. I just assumed they were orcs coming out of Isengard, but your explanation makes way more sense.
Yeah. Well.
I like that explanation better.
Well, we'll see. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. We might find out later, but it seems plausible to me based on those couple of things that I pointed out.
It does, absolutely.
So. The darkness continues through the night and into the next day, and it kind of seems to grow heavier. Mm-hmm. And then a new figure shows up, and it says, "He came a weary man with dented helm and cloven shield. Slowly he climbed from his horse and stood there a while gasping. At length he spoke. 'Is Eomer here?' he asked. 'You come at last, but too late, and with too little strength. Things have gone evilly since Theodred fell.'" Remember, Theodred is Theoden's son, who fell in battle.
Right.
"We were driven back yesterday over the Isen with great loss. Many perished at the crossing. Then at night fresh forces came over the river against our camp. All Isengard must be emptied, and Saruman has armed the wild hillmen and herd folk of Dunland beyond the rivers, and there also he loosed upon us. We were overmastered. The shield wall was broken. Erkenbrand of Westfold has drawn off those men he could gather towards his fastness in Helm's Deep. The rest are scattered." Where is Eomer? Tell him there is no hope ahead. He should return to Edoras before the wolves of Isengard come there. Theoden had sat silent, hidden from the man's sight behind his guards. Now he urged his horse forward. Come, stand before me, Ceorl, he said. I am here. The last host of the Eorlingas has ridden forth. It will not return without battle. The man's face lightened with joy and wonder. He drew himself up. Then he knelt, offering his notched sword to the king. Command me, lord, he cried, and pardon me. You thought I remained in Meduseld, bent like an old tree under winter snow. So it was when you rode to war. But a west wind has shaken the boughs, said Theoden. Give this man a fresh horse. Let us ride to the help of Erkenbrand. Excuse me. So, this man comes from the forces in the west that are trying to hold out against the forces of Isengard.
Yep.
Sounds like, basically he says it's as if Isengard has been emptied. There's so many soldiers from Isengard on the march here.
Yeah.
So things are looking bad, and he's like, he thinks they've already lost.
Right.
But
he's basically telling them to go home, right? He's telling Theoden and everybody else just there's no use.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but Theoden shows up, but he doesn't know that Theoden's there. He thinks Theoden is
still under Wormtongue's.
Yeah, is kind of still this deciding that he's this old man and he's not even going to bother.
Right.
But Theoden shows up and it's like this man's whole perspective changes. He's like, okay, now it's like just Theoden's mere presence gives him hope again.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Not guarantee that he's going to win, it just gives him hope again.
Right.
It's that same kind of effect we saw at the end of the last chapter. So, the story, we know that Isengard is on the march too. Mm-hmm. They're on the move, and so a huge battle is getting ready to ensue. That's right. They're already. So you kind of think of it. If again, we do the geography here. There's a western part of Rohan that butts up against Isengard.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
And that's the Westfold. Right.
Okay.
And that's the. I don't think we need this on right now. Turning off the heater. There we go.
I'm like freezing, but it's okay.
Oh, sorry. We can turn off the ceiling fan if you want.
Okay.
I'm sweating.
It's keeping me awake.
I'm hot.
Being chilly.
I get hot in here.
Yeah.
Sorry, anyway.
It's okay.
Random stuff. Yeah, random stuff. So, Isengard gets emptied.
Yes.
We got these two armies coming, and just so we understand the geography again, there's a west part of Rohan that's had to kind of hold off and be the first line of defense against the armies of Isengard, and they've taken huge losses.
Yes.
And they're kind of retreating, hoping to meet up with the forces from Edoras.
The reinforcements.
That's right.
Yes.
Gandalf at this suddenly he rides a short way ahead, and then he sees something, and he comes back and he's like, "Okay, I've got to go take care of something." Of course, this is how Gandalf rolls. He's like, "Hey, okay, guys, something just came up. Got to run. See ya. Go here. I'll meet you there." How many times does he do that in different stories? It seems like that's just Gandalf's way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
mean, I'm trying to think of like who that's like. It's almost like, I mean, he is. He's the Grand Marshal.
Well, yeah. That's even putting it mildly. I think. I mean, he's a Maiar, for heaven's sakes. Like, he can do whatever he wants.
Well, it's like his mission. If you go back and listen to the episode on the Astari, right, on the wizards that we did several episodes ago, he and the other wizards came over here with the specific mission to muster the people, to kind of lead the people, not to lord it over them, not to become great lords, but to lead the free peoples of Middle-earth against Sauron.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
They had to do it in a certain way. They couldn't do it in a way of dominating. They had to do it in kind of mustering. And so Gandalf is the one who's trying to do that, right? Yep. So he's got to do things that people don't understand sometimes, right? But they're starting to.
They're cool with that.
They're starting to. Well, they start to trust. They're starting to trust him more.
Yeah.
Previously, they wouldn't have trusted. Theoden and Wormtongue gave Gandalf a hard time about having ridden off before when they needed help.
Right.
And now Theoden's much more likely to just trust him and do what he says. But he's basically like, all right, post haste, get to Helm's Deep. Get to Helm's Deep. That's the armies of Isengard are coming. You've got to get to Helm's Deep. And
that's what Gandalf tells them.
And Mount a Stand. That's right.
Right.
So they're getting themselves to Helm's Deep, which I'm not sure if before they weren't necessarily heading to Helm's Deep, if they were just going to meet the armies of Isengard, or if their plan was to was to get to Helm's Deep in the first place.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to Helm's Deep in the first place, but maybe
what they were doing.
Maybe
too.
maybe they had an option.
Maybe
They viewed themselves as having an option.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Okay. So anyway, it's just kind of cool to think about Gandalf in those terms. It's kind of the grand, the general, the 4-star general grand marshal, of all of this. Like, he's not just thinking in terms of the battle. He's thinking the war.
He's
strategically.
thinking one step ahead. Yeah.
He's thinking one step ahead, but he's also thinking the big picture.
Yeah.
Right? And we'll see how that all unfolds in the rest of this chapter.
It's good to have somebody like Gandalf on your team.
Definitely. I like the little exchange with Hama and the other soldier here. This little mini exchange. You want to read that? What does that mean?
Oh, what does that mean? Said one of the guard to Hama. That Gandalf Greyheim has need of haste, answered Hama. Ever he goes and comes unlooked for. Wormtongue, were he here, would not find it hard to explain, said the other. True enough, said Hama, but for myself I will wait until I see Gandalf again. Maybe you will wait long, said the other.
Yeah.
I
So
don't understand what that meant by what he said about Wormtongue. Like, just because he's, like, so good at... What does it mean that Wormtongue would not find it hard to explain?
just because Wormtongue always looks at Gandalf's actions and assumes the worst on them.
I
right.
see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, I mean, it's what you were getting ready to say, right? Because Wormtongue is...
He just has a way of...
Yeah.
With words and of assuming the worst of people.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you just think about that name Wormtongue, right? Like,
It's horrible.
Ugh. But just, like, the whole idea of being able to, like, worm... Because what does a worm do? A worm can kind of, like, get in, like, kind of slither into small little places and, get into everything, right? And Wormtongue, Grima, has that ability with words just to kind of... Even when things seem against him, he has the ability to kind of, like, slither his way into the little crack until, he's got inside your brain.
Right.
Yep. All right. So...
Do they listen?
They listen. They head to Helm's Deep.
Mm-hmm.
And we get a description of Helm's Deep.
Yes.
So, Helm's Deep is like... I think people usually think of Helm's Deep as like in particular as the fortress. But Helm's Deep is kind of a whole area. And the deep is kind of is really what the fortress defends, right? The deep is like the area behind.
So is it like a gorge?
Yeah, kind of. Okay. In fact, there's you can find lots of different maps of this thing in different places, and people have drawn it in different ways. I'll recommend again this book, The Atlas of Middle Earth by Wynne Fonstad. And there's a drawing in here. The only drawback with this book, it's wonderful, but the only drawback with it is I really feel like the pictures could use an updating. They're very two-dimensional, and sometimes they can be hard to decipher at first what it's actually saying. But she does a good drawing based on Tolkien's description in here, and but you basically have Helm's Deep, which is the entirety of this refuge, and it's kind of so you see this little stream that goes into the mountain, or that issues out of the mountain, really. Mm-hmm. That it kind of the valley of that kind of widens out in the mountains right here, and then the mountain, the rock into which it's built, is called the Hornberg, right?
The fortress is called Hornberg.
I think it's the actual side of the mountain, right? Like that's it's kind of built into. You know what I'm saying?
What is built into?
That the fortress is built into.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. Let me read this. Okay, the wall stretched from the outer wall of the Hornberg over the stream, then on across the gorge. It stood 20 feet high. The Hornberg was constructed atop the Horn Rock. Okay, so yeah, okay, you're right. I'm sorry. The Hornberg is the fortress that's constructed upon the Horn Rock, which is this rock that sticks out from the mountain.
It says that in the book too.
Okay, so Why don't you do this part? Because you seem to have a better. I have trouble with these kind of descriptions.
No, this map is actually the one that you have pulled up on the computer right now is really helping me.
Oh, okay, good. Well,
because I didn't quite get it either when I first read it.
Yeah.
But it mentions. Let me just read this paragraph.
Let me say this too. The map that I have pulled up on the screen. So there's the map and the Atlas of Middle Earth, which that book is great. You should own it if you're a Tolkien fan. And then there's a map on lotro-wiki.com, which I guess that's Lord of the Rings Online wiki. There's this whole like online game you can play called Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
But anyway, if you go to the article about Helm's Deep on that website, lotro-wiki.com, you'll find this map that we're looking at of the Hornberg. It just says Helm's Deep, and it's got the picture of the Hornberg right there, and shows kind of the layout of the whole section of Helm's Deep. Mm-hmm. So, go ahead.
All right. So I'll just start the paragraph before. Still some miles away, on the far side of the Westfold Vale, lay a green combe, a great bay in the mountains, out of which a gorge opened in the hills. Men of that land called it Helm's Deep, after a hero of old wars who had made his refuge there. Ever steeper and narrower, it wound inward from the north under the shadow of the Thryhairn, till the crow-haunted cliffs rose like mighty towers on either side, shutting out the light. At Helm's Gate, before the mouth of the deep, there was a heel of rock thrust outward by the northern cliff. There upon its spurs stood high walls of ancient stone, and within them was a lofty tower. Men said that in the far-off days of the glory of Gondor, the Sea Kings had built here this fastness with the hands of giants. The Hornberg it was called, for a trumpet sounded upon the tower, echoed in the deep behind, as if armies long forgotten were issuing to war from caves beneath the hills. A wall, too, the men of old had made from the Hornberg to the southern cliff, barring the entrance to the gorge. Beneath it, by a wide culvert, the deepening stream passed out. About the feet of the Horn Rock it wound, and flowed then in a gully through the midst of a wide green gorge, sloping gently down from Helm's Gate to Helm's Dyke. Thence it fell into the deepening combe, and out into the Westfold Vale. There in the Hornberg at Helm's Gate, Erkenbrand, master of Westfold, on the borders of the Mark, now dwelt. As the days darkened with threat of war, being wise, he had repaired the wall and made the fastness strong.
Okay.
So it's a pretty. It sounds like it's a pretty impressive fortress.
Yeah. So basically, you have the fortress is kind of at the back of this narrowing valley,
right?
That goes, that kind of winds up into the mountains.
So it's at the southern. It's more in the southern part, right, of the gorge.
Yeah,
so
like south, kind of
southwest.
Yeah.
So if you follow the stream, you're heading toward Isengard. Is that right?
I don't know if you're necessarily heading towards Isengard. You're just heading out into, because I don't know where the stream goes after it leaves the Helm's Deep area.
Yeah.
But it kind of goes out, and I think it connects to other streams out there.
Oh, okay.
But
But this is toward the back. Just based on where, like, the riders are not going to have to go through the gorge to get to the Hornberg, right?
I think
from the direction that they're coming.
No, I think they do. I think they come down. I think they have to come down.
Unless they're coming down that way.
I could be wrong, but I think they come down like through the entrance because I think that was why there was a race to get there, so they could actually get to Helm's. They could get their way into Helm's Deep before anybody else got there, right?
Because there's only one way in.
Right.
All right. Okay.
So, so they get in. Helm's. So the fortress is made up of kind of the fortress with the big tower in it, and then a big wall that goes across the rest of the opening in the valley. And then behind all that, what it's protecting is this huge system of caves that they have. They can put all their stores in and put put women and children and old people and that kind of thing in, as they're protecting it.
Got it.
So that's that's the description, and then there's this area that leads up to it as it widens out, and there's like some other smaller hills and mountains and things like that form Helm's Dyke, which is where the stream flows out of, right? So it's there's kind of two layers to this protection, right? There's Helm's Dyke, which has a small opening, and then there's the Hornberg,
yes,
which is the protection for Helm's Deep. The other little part of it, did it mention the Causeway?
Did not mention the Causeway, I don't think. No.
Well, there's a Causeway, and that's basically the most direct way into the fortress. Everything else is just kind of huge, thick wall and built upon this like extremely strong rock.
Okay.
And but this Causeway, so a Causeway is like a bridge, and I looked this up just to see it, but Causeway is like a bridge, like whenever you're going, like a lot of times when we go to the beach, some beach, there's like a long, a lot of times there's like an intracoastal waterway that you have to cross in order to get to a little island that kind of sits maybe 2 miles off the actual coast, if that. And that's where like the actual beach is,
right? Right.
So you have these causeways, and that are like, so basically a causeway is like, it's maybe a term for a long bridge or a low bridge.
It's more of a low bridge. Yeah.
So this particular causeway goes over part of the stream, and it kind of raises up so that the door to get into the fortress is not right there on the ground, so that basically you have a narrow, only a few people at a time can try to get up the causeway, at a time.
So it's a well defended fortress.
Yeah, it's well constructed for the purpose of kind of holding out against a siege. So that's Helm's Deep. And in a description. Whoops. All right, where did my notes go? There we go. So that's what they're trying to get to. They need to get to Helm's Deep. It sounds like as the armies of Isengard are coming towards Helm's Deep as well, they're leaving kind of a scorched earth in their trail. They're killing the people of Rohan as they find them, leaving them there. And we're not talking about just orcs. We're talking about orcs and wildmen who Saruman has kind of inspired them to go and fight against the people of Rohan. As if they're probably putting them as like some kind of oppressors or something like that.
Right.
And as they find out that this race is on, they continue to kind of ride through the night. Eomer says, "Then let us be swift. Let us drive through such foes as are already between us and the fastness. There are caves in Helm's Deep where hundreds may lie hid, and secret ways lead thence up on to the hills." And Theoden at that says, "Trust not to secret ways. Saruman has long spied out this land. Still in that place our defense may last long. Let us go." So there is a thought that if they don't get to Helm's Deep, then maybe they can hold out in some of these like secret ways up in the hills.
Right.
But Theoden's like, no, we can't trust in those things. We need to, Saruman's been at this a while. He probably knows about a lot of those things. We need to get to Helm's Deep. We need to do our best to get there.
Lie, you fools.
Lie, you fools.
So they go.
So they go.
In the van.
That's right.
I thought that was funny.
What, in the van?
Yeah, in the van. Aragorn and Legolas went now with Eomer in the van. I had this image of like them all like in Mr. T's van, like just like rocking out, like driving. I'm like, in the van, what?
You had to bring up Mr. T.
I had to bring up Mr. T, just briefly. But anyway, I just chuckled when I read that. I was like, I just saw like Aragorn
I pity
and
the
Legolas.
fool who don't get to Helm's Deep on time.
Exactly. It was just funny. I could just see like Eomer driving and Aragorn in the back with his sword and Legolas with his bow, and they're like, they're like rocking out, like getting themselves pumped for the battle.
Nice.
Yeah. But what do they mean here then in the van? Obviously, it's not Mr. T's van. What does that mean?
It's like caravan. I think
it's like a caravan. It's like short for caravan.
It's just a short word for like a group, like a host of a group of people traveling
together.
Yeah.
Okay. I just hadn't heard that used like that before.
Yeah. Well, maybe you need to get with it.
Maybe I do. Maybe I need to stop watching Mr. T and just live my life so I know what in the van means.
So that's what you do all day. That's why dinner's never ready on time. Just sitting home watching Mr. T reruns.
Anyway.
And watching that video that Rob Fangman sent along over and over the Key and Peele video.
Back to the topic at hand.
Mm-hmm.
Do they win the race? Do they get there?
What?
Do they win the race?
What are we talking about?
Yeah, we're talking about Helm's Deep and the race to Helm's Deep.
I don't know. You tell me, do they win the race?
Do they win the race? I think they win the race.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
So it sounds like it sounds like as they're going along that they do encounter some like bands of orcs along the way, but they're not big enough to do. The bands of orcs are too small to really give them much resistance, and so a lot of times as the orcs see them coming, they run away.
Right.
And so that's fine with the Riders of Rohan. They're like, we got to get to Helm's Deep. That's their focus.
Yes.
Let's get to Helm's Deep, and then we're going to mount our stand there.
Right.
Our defense there. Aragorn says he even says, it grieves me to fly before them, right? To
just let them run away.
Right, to just to continue down our road, and because as Theoden says, they bring fire and they are burning as they come, rick, cot, and tree. This was a rich vale and had many homesteads. Alas for my folk. So they're just being horrible. Yeah. They're being orcish.
It's like the sack of Rome.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they're leaving this kind of trail of scorched earth, and then we hear a little bit about this fella Erkenbrand. Erkenbrand,
and he's at Helm's Deep.
Well,
right?
They're hoping he's at Helm's Deep. The word they got is that he went to Helm's Deep in order
retreated.
to like basically. It sounds like Erkenbrand is like the Lord of the West fold. Like he's kind of like under he's like the governor of the western part of Rohan is what it sounds like. So, and I understand that to mean that he's under Theoden, right?
Yes.
That Theoden is the king of all of Rohan, and then like the east and the west have their own governors, or maybe just the west does, and Theoden is effectively the governor of the east as well.
Right. Enough politics. Let's move it.
Well, okay. Dang.
So.
Don't be hasty.
Okay. But they do learn.
Yeah.
To their joy, that Erkenbrand had left many men to hold Helm's Gate.
Right.
Right, and more had since escaped.
Yeah, but when
they're hopeful that there's a good amount of help there.
Yeah, when they get there, Erkenbrand is not there, but his people.
Right, but his people are there.
His people are there.
Yeah.
And so there's already some of the Rohirrim are there. Here's where we hear about the Causeway. They say before the Causeway they crossed the stream, they dismounted. In a long file, they led their horses up the ramp and passed within the gates of the Hornberg. There they were welcomed again with joy and renewed hope, for now they were men enough to man both the burg and the barrier wall. So we get a little bit of a description of the Hornberg. So again, there's two parts. There's two parts of the fortress. There's the Hornberg, which is the kind of circular construct with different levels within it, and that's on the left side. If you're facing it, it's on the right side. If you were inside of it, it would be on the left side. Right. If you were facing out.
Yeah.
And then there's a deeping wall, which is just this long wall that's 20 feet high and so thick that 4 men could walk abreast along the top. That's a thick wall.
That is thick. That's a very thick wall.
You think about that, that's probably 8 to 10 feet.
Yeah, 4 men
thick.
Can walk side by side,
Sheltered by a parapet over which only a tall man could look. Here and there were clefts in the stone through which men could shoot. The battlement could be reached by a stair running down from a door in the outer court of the Hornberg. 3 flights of steps led also up onto the wall from the deep behind. But in front it was smooth, and the great stones of it were set with such skill that no foothold could be found at their joints, and at the top they hung over like a sea-delved cliff. So there's the Hornberg, and then there's the deeping wall, which runs across the rest of the valley. Yeah. So that's their
any kind of entrance. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I like this little just brief exchange again between Gimli and Legolas. Gimli is humorous as ever. He says, "This is more to my liking. Ever my heart rises as we draw near the mountains. There is good rock here. This country has tough bones." I like that.
Yes.
"I felt them in my feet as we came up from the dike. Give me a year and 100 of my kin, and I would make this a place that armies would break upon like water." And of course, Legolas, being an elf, he's like, "I do not doubt it, but you are a dwarf, and dwarves are strange folk. You dwarves are weird. I do not like this place, and I shall like it no more by the light of day. But you comfort me, Gimli, and I am glad to have you standing nigh with your stout legs and your hard axe. I wish there were more of your kin among us, but even more would I give for 100 good archers of Mirkwood. We shall need them. The Rohirrim have good bowmen after their fashion, but there are too few here. Too few." "It is dark for archery," said Gimli. "Indeed, it is time for sleep. Sleep! I feel the need of it, as never I thought any dwarf could. Riding is tiring work, yet my axe is restless in my hand. Give me a row of orc necks and room to swing, and all weariness will fall from me. All you need is a row of orc necks. Man,
Give me a reason.
that's right. Always looking for that fight.
Always
That's
looking.
Gimli.
Yep.
That is Gimli. So, Gimli likes it here. Legolas not so much.
Which,
And
not surprising.
Yeah, they were in a forest before, and Legolas
was
liked it
happy.
there, and
Yeah, and Gimli
Gimli
didn't.
wasn't.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Showing their elf and dwarf
Mm-hmm.
characteristics. Yep.
And then I liked a little bit when the men came galloping back over the field and up the ramp to the gate of the Hornberg. The rear guard of the Westfolders had been driven in. The enemy is at hand, they said. We loosed every arrow that we had and filled the dike with orcs. But it will not halt them long. Already they are scaling the bank at many points, thick as marching ants. But we have taught them not to carry torches. I like that.
What does that mean? We have
That
taught
means
them not
it's
to
dark,
carry-
and those who were carrying torches got shot. They were easy targets.
Oh, I see.
Right?
Okay.
But it's a big army coming, and they realize we've got to pull back. So the army is at the dike now. The army of Isengard is
The
at the
orcs,
dike
yeah.
now.
Okay.
And so with that, the battle really begins. Brazen trumpets sounded. The enemy surged forward, some against the deeping wall, others toward the causeway and the ramp that led up the horn gates. There, the hugest orcs were mustered, and the wild men of Dunland fells. A moment they hesitated, and then on they came. The lightning flashed, and blazoned upon every helm and shield the ghastly hand of Isengard was seen. They reached the summit of the rock. They drove towards the gates. Then at last an answer came. A storm of arrows met them, and a hail of stones. They wavered, broke, and fled back, and then charged again, broke and charged again, and each time, like the incoming sea, they halted at a higher point. Again trumpets rang, and a press of roaring men leaped forth. They held their great shields above them like a roof, while in their midst they bore 2 trunks of mighty trees. Behind them orc archers crowded, sent a hailing of darts against the bowmen on the walls. They gained the gates. The trees, swung by strong arms, smote the timbers with a rending boom. If any man fell, crushed by a stone hurtling from above, 2 others sprang to take his place. Again and again the great rams swung and crashed.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a serious battle.
Sounds
So-
like a jolly good time.
So they're trying to break in to the Hornberg through the gate that the causeway leads up to, with these 2 huge tree trunks that they're using as battering rams. At this, Éomer and Aragorn decide that they got to do something about it. They're like, okay, we got to put a stop to this business.
Enough of this.
So they sneak out. There's this little passage in the back of the Hornberg where they can sneak out. It's kind of cleft into a very small little area, and they sneak out with a group of folks, and they go to attack these guys. They say, "Come," Aragorn says, "Come, this is the hour when we draw swords together." Running like fire, they sped along the wall and up the steps, and passed into the outer court upon the rock. As they ran, they gathered a handful of stout swordsmen. There was a small postern door that opened in an angle of the berg wall on the west, where the cliff stretched out to meet it. On that side, a narrow path ran round towards the great gate, between the wall and the sheer brink of the rock. Together, Éomer and Aragorn sprang through the door, their men close behind. The 2 swords flashed from the sheath as one. "Guthwinne!" cried Éomer. "Guthwinne for the mark!" "Andúril!" cried Aragorn. "Andúril for the Dunedain!" Charging from the side, they hurled themselves upon the wild men. Andúril rose and fell, gleaming with white fire. A shout went up from wall and tower. "Andúril! Andúril goes to war! The blade that was broken shines again!" Dismayed, the rammers let fall the trees and turned to flight. But the wall of their shields was broken as by a lightning stroke, and they were swept away, hewn down, or cast over the rock into the stony stream below. The orc archers shot wildly and then fled.
Dang.
Yeah.
They're like, jolly gosh, let's get out of here.
So, it's game time.
Mm-hmm.
It is game time.
It's game time.
So there we go. We're going to pause there, and that's the end of this episode.
Sounds jolly.
And next week we'll finish this chapter.
Okay.
So, yeah, this chapter's getting pretty exciting.
It is getting very exciting.
Cool little...
Cliffhanger!
Yep, cool little battle there. All right. So, that's the end of discussion of this part of the chapter, and so it's time for haiku.
Oh, yeah, baby.
Hope you're ready.
I'm ready. Are you ready? I hope you're ready, because I'm ready. Go.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 syllables in haiku.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 syllables in haiku. Dang, that
Nice.
sounded awesome.
It did. I think it was the best rendition we've ever done.
I think so. It must have been
We're gonna start getting gigs. People are just gonna ask us to come
Just come do the haiku
Yeah.
song over
Yeah.
and over.
performing this week at the Ryman. John and Greta Carswell,
John
the
and
haiku song. We go out there and we perform it. Takes 45 seconds.
45 seconds.
We do an encore.
Which then takes another 45 seconds.
That's right.
That sounds awesome.
All right.
All right.
Who's first? High Queen of Haiku.
I think we should play rock, paper, scissors.
All right.
Ready?
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Quadruples. All right, you get to choose.
I'll go first.
Okay. Do it.
Treachery sown. The men of the mark must stand fast. A line to defend.
Treachery sown. Nice. I like that. Well done, you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, here's mine. Swords drawn together for the mark, the Dunedain. Andruel gleams, quells.
Nice.
Yeah, thanks.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I know. But thanks anyway.
Okay.
All right.
Who we got? Who else we got?
We got Rob, who totally won brownie points for calling me High Queen of Haiku. So he sent 2, but he says he thinks the first one should be good for part 1 and the second for part 2. So we'll just read the first one.
Let's hear the first one.
All right. Hornberg, Helm's refuge, great fastness of ancient kings, like water, foes break. It's good.
Booyah.
That's real good. I like how
Booyah.
he made that Gimli reference in there about enemies breaking like water.
Mm-hmm.
That's very cool.
Awesome.
Rob also signed his email, humble haiku servant.
Nice.
So, awesome sauce. All right, Mary Grace. Mary Grace. She wrote 2. So how about I read the first one, you read the second?
Sure. Are they both for this part of the chapter?
Yeah, they're both for this part of the chapter. All right. A blessed morn behind, the hosts of Mordor moving, a black night ahead.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That was very good, as usual.
She didn't use benighted morn.
No, she didn't. Well, she probably just, she doesn't want to get overused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I understand.
I understand. I mean, the wise fool, she knows what she's doing.
She knows what she's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Or does she?
I think she probably does.
All right. Now you see Gandalf. Now you don't. Why must he leave? Wizards are useful.
Indeed.
Nice.
Indeed. I like that.
Nice.
It's really good.
Good question. Why must he leave?
Why must he leave? I'm sure he's got a good reason.
Yeah.
All right. Next we have Aaron, the reason, Thiessen.
Nice. Thiessen.
Thiessen. Oh, sorry. I was so...
I knew I shouldn't have let you be the haiku queen.
Thiessen. Sorry, Aaron. All right. He says, here are some haikus for you. The first one. The time-worn bastion, built in the deeps of time by Helm the Hammerhand.
Nice. Yeah, I like that little touch about. I wonder if there's a story about Helm, who Helm was. Like the story where Helm's Deep got its name. There was a little allusion to that.
Yeah.
I wonder if that Tolkien wrote that story anywhere.
I'm
not aware of it, but I may just need to do a little research on it. But
Maybe
if anybody knows the answer to that question, let us know.
Yeah. It would be nice to know Helm's backstory.
Maybe Aaron knows.
Aaron might. Aaron, if you know, let us know.
Yeah.
Clue us in.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Do you want to read the second one?
Heck yes.
All right. Do it. Second from Aaron. Thiessen.
Gandalf Greyheim parts unanticipatedly. When will he return? Unanticipatedly.
It is.
That's
It's
a 7-syllable
7.
word.
syllable word.
Nice.
I've never seen a whole line of haiku written with just one word.
I think Aaron might win.
I think,
Just for having one word be 7 syllables this week.
Not
that we necessarily play winners, but you know.
But that.
But if there was a winner, that would probably be the winner.
I think Aaron would take the prize.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is. That's really good.
Yeah.
All right, and last but certainly not least, we have haiku from Josh.
Superfan Josh Skywalker.
Yes.
That's right.
All right, here's his first one. The Hornberg, Helms Deep, the Great Valley Gorge Fortress, Gimli's home from home.
Nice.
I like that.
It's home from home. I like that. Gimli's home from home.
Yeah. It does kind of have like some, like you think about the, where were they? The Durin's Hall? Oh, no.
Oh, when they were in, Moria.
Moria, right. The mines of Moria. It does have, obviously Hornberg is not underground like the mines were, but it does have some similarities.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a dwarf place. I mean, the Helm's Deep is totally something a dwarf would like.
Yeah.
That they like being in the mountains.
In stone.
Surrounded by stone, all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
That's how dwarves roll.
Yeah.
So
that's where they're comfortable.
And remember, it's because they're made by Ale, who likes crafting stuff.
Like to work with stone.
That's right.
All right, you can read a second.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
They dance now in battle, Anduril and Guthwine, men's future kings. Nice.
Awesome.
Spoiler
dance. Oh, that is a spoiler alert.
I think it's that right. Yeah.
I like that he used the word dance, though.
Yes.
Dance. Think of swords dancing.
That's
nice.
good stuff.
Well done, guys.
Yeah.
Knocked it out of the park, as usual.
Definitely glad I went first this week because everybody else's was better than me.
Everyone else.
Yeah.
Was better than mine too. We're getting.
I think yours was better than mine.
It may have been better than yours, but we're still getting schooled by our fans.
Yeah.
Which I don't have any problem with whatsoever.
I don't either.
I like it that way.
I do too.
Mm-hmm.
I do too.
All right. Well, virtual high fives to all of y'all.
Right on.
Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh,
all right.
Whoosh.
Well, we got anything else?
No, I think that's a wrap.
That is a wrap. Okay.
Yeah. Let these people get on with their Christmasing.
All right. Cool stuff. So, so go watch the bonus video over there. It's free on this episode. Orcs versus Goblins. What's the difference?
Yeah.
And you can find that at patreon.com/TolkienRoad.
I'm going to watch that too because I have no idea.
Well, you get to be a part of it, so you can watch it after you make it.
Even better. Okay.
And then thanks again to our patrons.
Yes.
Y'all rock. Shannon Stockbridge, Josh Sosa, William Hutton, Brian Orr, and Margaret Lyon.
Thank you all so much.
We appreciate your support, and if you would like to give your support to the Tolkien Road, head on over to patreon.com/TolkienRoad.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We will talk at you next time.
Yep. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Bye. Please remember to check out truemyths.org and tolkienroad.com for show notes and plenty of other Tolkien goodness. Also, if you're enjoying the podcast, would you please leave the Tolkien Road a rating and feedback on iTunes? It's a great way to support the show and takes less than a minute. On our next episode, we'll continue our discussion of Book 3 with the second half of Chapter 7, Helm's Deep. If you'd like to submit haiku for that episode, please send them to tolkienroadpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and until next time, the road goes ever on.